smoke. I don't do it during my main show, but I do.
That's fine. JP, we do a podcast together. He smokes actual cigarettes, like he's a gangster.
Oh yeah, nice. Ha, right. Poke him right in the eye, right? Like I would love it. A friend of mine used to. Well, I don't. He's not a friend anymore, but a guy I knew way back in the day used to smoke drum, like, and he would get tobacco from like just loose tobacco, and he was convinced. I'm convinced, but he was convinced that the cancer-causing agents were added after to keep shelf life long and things like that. So formaldehyde, no any of that other crap in the cigarettes, just tobacco. If you smoke just tobacco, it'll be the same as smoking just marijuana. It's more. He said it was more pure. I believed him. I thought, yeah, that's plausible, very plausible.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I do know that in Europe, for example, people still roll their own cigarettes and they use regular paper. I sometimes look at that. I'm like, why are they adding all these chemicals? But I guess it gives it that nice crisp look, you know?
Maybe. Well, the thing was, the reason that I heard that cigarettes were suddenly causing cancer in the 60s was because tobacco was a big cash crop for the United States. And the powers that be, the same powers that be that are now trying to kind of screw us over, decided that they didn't want such an easy cash crop for the United States. So they wanted to kill that cash crop. So that started in something like the 50s or the 60s. Fast forward 40 years. And I remember when the bars, because I was smoking, the bars brought in the, you can't smoke in here anymore. And then our bar was like, we're no longer a bar, we're a private club, because there was a loophole. And then, so we smoked in there for another year. That worked for a year, believe it or not. And then everywhere was smoke free. And so the plan, if that was actually the plan, worked. But again, because before that whole smoking is a health hazard, everybody viewed it as like having a cup of tea or like, afternoon coffee. It was like, this isn't a problem. This is just somebody's habits. Fine. So they turned it into a health problem. They're like, oh, it's very expensive. You're going to kill yourself. So I don't know.
Great. I was talking to Leighton, and he said that this whole experiment with secondhand smoke caused cancer. That trope. This comedian never smoked a day in his life, and he had lung cancer because of secondhand smoke. And he said that was sort of the precursor to COVID. You're killing.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. I remember movie theaters used to run this ad. It was a waitress, and she was, had a very rough voice, talking very rough. And she was like, I never smoked, but I hung out in this diner all day and everybody smoked in here. So, I'm dying because they all smoked and killed me. And I was like,
just like, no, you're dying because you hung out at the diner.
Yeah, like, dude, you saw the smoke. Come on, man. Like, this isn't. So yeah, I'm not convinced that a lot of the things that we're told, even Iran. Have you been watching the Iranian stuff? I'm sure you have been watching the Iranian stuff. I don't know what's true. So 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, they were saying the mullahs were on the run. Iranians have reasserted their control of major cities, not just like, a couple cities here and there. They were saying that Tehran itself was under the control of the protesters or the Persians or whatever you want to call it. And now all of a sudden, and then they had a banking thing they rolled out and they said, we're going to break the regime with the banking thing. And I was like, well, if there are citizens in the streets and the mullahs are on the run, activating the banking thing seems late. Doesn't seem like.
You know what happened? Alistair Crook explained this really well. So there's Persians, Iranians in the West, like me, diaspora, expats, and we like to think wishfully, We long for a day when the mullahs are, they're all hanging by their necks and we have peace back in Iran. But what happens is these people, the administration in the US, the Trump administration, is relying on these people to give them intel. And obviously these people are saying, oh, the regime is on the verge of collapse. You just fly a couple of jets over it and the people will rally around you. And that's, the government believed that and they started this operation. Thank God Donald Trump came to his senses. Last minute, he looked at it and he's like, no, this regime's not falling. We're not sending in U.S. troops.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm glad that the U.S. is not actioning anything, although everybody and their dog continues to say the U.S. is building up. U.S. is telling allies in the region that we're imminent, attacks are imminent, the whole deal is imminent. But my concern mainly is, and I don't know if it's media or U.S. media or Canadian media or Iranian media, whatever, propaganda, I don't know what it is, but it wasn't like the videos that were being used were it seemed, coming out of Iran. It seemed, who knows, in the era of AI, right? It could be just a video game, whatever. So the videos were used to drive a message in the West that this was imminent. And I'm saying that, you know, maybe Trump knew there was something hinky with the info, and that's what held his attack. Maybe he didn't, and who knows as well. But my main thing is, who knows what's real? The way they're responding to Iran now is not the way you would respond to a country that had an uprising and had mullahs on the run and major cities under the control of the protesters. So that's the main thing. What we're being told and supposed reality are out of sync. It doesn't make sense to me. So my conclusion is what we were told is not accurate. And so we have to wait.
I think so. If we're being honest, I think what happened is the CIA and Mossad, they bought up a whole bunch of Iranian currency, and they caused a bank run. And then the people went on the street. They're protesting that, you know, there's rampant inflation. And then in the middle of that, Mossad had agents in there, and they unleashed these guys to go and start executing law enforcement officers and firing into the crowd. So trying to get the people to think that the law enforcement's firing on them. Then they kill the law enforcement. The law enforcement fires on the crowd. And they were hoping that this would destabilize the country. I think they overplayed their hand when again, I'm not there, but I think they saw this. Like, there was one cop apparently got beheaded. One definitely got burned after they killed him, they burned his body. And they're like, no, this is way worse than what we had before.
Yeah. Plausible. It seems like it echoes the regime change in the color revolutions when what was it? Egypt had, what was his name? Mubarak? No, it wasn't. Was it Mubarak?
I think so.
Yeah. And so they moved him
using Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring. Yeah. And there was a whole bunch that went, but that was all back. I think Mossad, I think Soros money, that was all back. That was to destabilize the region and continue the invasion into Europe and all the other places that we've seen continue for the last 10 years, et cetera, in my opinion. But who am I?
No, you're right. It's difficult to tell what's right or wrong anymore. Like the regime now the regime change, we can segue into our topic. The regime change is coming back into the US. Like this is almost a color revolution.
I think the same thing right now, what's going on in Minnesota, and the fact that there's nobody who is trying to push back on this with regards to, this looks like coordinated. I was doing reading today, looking at Signal chats yesterday. Signal chats that they've got goes all the way up to not quite Tim Walz, but his like right hand people, the people who are running things, and they're running anti-ICE officially with official Signal channels, and all sorts of really. It seems far too organized to be you and a bunch of friends doing something against Minnesota. And if it was you and a bunch of friends, like say if it was you and me and 5 or 6 other people who are the only ones who want to talk about what's going on, say it's us, we'd get crushed, man. So what's going on where these guys are able to intimidate ICE agents and follow ICE agents and follow people like, what's his name? Project Veritas. I can't remember.
James O'Keefe.
Yeah, O'Keefe. Yeah. Get to the point where people like that, I mean, he's seasoned, man. Like James O'Keefe is not somebody who's going to wilt under pressure. And he's like, holy shit, this is crazy. And so this seems like it's something else. It doesn't seem like your group of wokesters decided to get serious. It seems like somebody came in and weaponized these people against the United States.
Right, but let's take it from the ground level all the way up to the high level. You have women out there that are using rape whistles. This isn't common things that ordinary soccer moms do when they're confronting and impeding law enforcement. They're being taught that when you follow the ICE officers until they try to pull you out of the car, and make sure you resist and videotape yourself and scream and pretend like you're being assaulted. And another one is, when you're being arrested, make some claim. One woman said, I got a head injury. I got a mental issue. So you try to make a scene. And then you follow that all the way up to Obama and Clinton. They released those 2 posts, which is essentially they're calling for anything from a riot to an insurrection.
Yep. And they don't talk. Well, I didn't see the Obama one, but I saw the Clinton one, and he didn't talk about any of the fraud. They've successfully changed. If you say Minnesota last week, people would think fraud. This week, they think murderous Trump regime. And that's like not my words. That's somebody, what's his name? There was an influencer who was trying to frame that way. And I said, nope, that's not what they're doing. They're not killing people. They are defending themselves from everything I've seen.
Yeah, what's a phrase they use? Due process. Nobody's ever used that before in the last like 25 years. Commonplace now.
Yeah, well, right. And that's their whole illegal program relies on this idea of due process. And, you have to go through all of these check marks or these benchmarks before you can do anything to me. I'm allowed to follow you, intimidate you, add you to the database, blow rape whistles, all sorts of stuff, but you can't do anything to me. And that seems, there are legal protections for United States citizens, but if you're not a United States citizen, you're just there and you're there illegally, you shouldn't be there. You don't have any protections. You don't have any protections. There's nothing there to protect you from anything. Like, you're illegal. You're not an American citizen. Get out. You don't have the protections under the law, as far as I understand it. So it's a weird thing to see that law weaponized against Trump. And I think that they're trying to, like with Clinton coming out and saying, it's unbelievable what's going on it's a snow day. So somebody's ringing the doorbell. So I might have to go and answer the door because I don't hear anybody going to get.
Go ahead. I'm going to bring something up anyway. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
No worries. I'll wait for Mark to come back, but this is a self-governed. He's got really good insight. Everybody should follow him. Self-governed CA. Many of the NGO. Oh, here's Mark.
I'm back. Sorry. There's my kids.
No worries. I was just going to say this to the audience. This guy's self-governed. He's got really good insight. He's almost always right. He says, many of the NGO and church groups involved with fraud and mass migration are HQ'd in Minnesota. They are in the process of high-level and political arrest. And the other side will send in operatives to get killed or convince a soccer mom in an effort to control the optics.
Yeah, I think I read a breakdown, or somebody had shared that with me as well. I read that this morning. And yeah, it is. They're trying to take control of the narrative, as I said, to change the channel from the fraud in Minnesota to how terrible Trump is. And they're trying, like when Clinton was going after Trump and saying, I've never in my life seen anything so bad in the United States, and I never thought I'd see this, and people are being arrested and blah 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 blah. He fails to mention that the people being arrested are illegals who have broken the law in the United States and are there illegally. And he goes on to frame it as Donald Trump is to blame for this, and it's like, that's disingenuous. And it gets even worse. They're trying to frame it like Trump is using the apparatus of the United States government to go after innocent people, and he's a dictator and a tyrant. And the Minnesota thing is meant to be a linchpin in that narrative, and it's false. And they're doing it just like the January 6th narrative is false, just like the 9/11 narrative, is false, just like there are other narratives that we could point out are false. They don't care. They will lie, double down on the lie, triple down on the lie. And it doesn't matter if you bring evidence. Doesn't matter if you say that's not true. Like, look at the video. That's not true. We have video of this. Look at that. Doesn't matter. They will still lie to everybody who believes them, and they'll continue, double down, triple down. They are trying to create a boogeyman like that bad painter mustache guy, and they will hang it around Trump's neck in order to convince everybody they can convince that he's bad. And then when you've convinced 60% of people, even 30% of people, if they're a vocal 30%, and they are, and like, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to quote hate Trump. Like, oh, I hate Trump, but this part, he's right. You have to hate Trump. You have to couch everything you say and saying, oh, I don't like Trump. But anybody who doesn't hate Trump, as a matter of course, doesn't get ahead anywhere. You understand? They'll cut you out. They'll just be like, oh no, you like Trump too much. Poof, gone. So anybody trying to give credibility, or like, that's not what they're doing, here's what they're doing, you're not part of the game. If you don't say January 6th was an insurrection run by Trump, you're not part of the game, buddy. We're not going to platform you. We're not going to talk about your point of view. There's nobody who's going to think about it that way. They're going to think about it this way. Trump bad. That's what they want. That's the goal. You know what I mean?
I got a question for you. Peggy in the comments actually is asking, do you think the Trump admin could be doing something to de-escalate the situation? Does it look like they're doing anything for narrative control? Like after the USAID, they lost all control of like a cohesive narrative.
Yeah. So do you think that they could be doing something to de-escalate the situation? I don't think they want to de-escalate the situation. I think they want to drag it out and expose it, and this helps them in their exposure. I don't think they want to control a narrative. I think they want to expose the people who are controlling the narrative and the spin. And I think they want a genuine press that they're not putting this talking points out to. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, could they be doing something to de-escalate the situation? Yes, they could be arresting the people who are coordinating this, but they're mapping out the network. They're trying to figure it out. And if it's as big as you were suggesting, Peyman, that if everything's being QB'd nationwide through Minnesota, which very plausible could happen for sure, then they're mapping the upper echelon of it. And if they're taking down the upper guys, if they're arresting the top, then this is the kind of when you're attacking a bad guy and like it starts getting mad, like in a video game or something like that, and like the more you attack it where it hurts, the more mad it gets. That's what we're watching, right? Like if these guys, and I mean, I don't know what the Trump administration's actioning at this point in time, but it seems like he's saying that we want to go after these bad guys. And I think that we're watching a huge sting. I think we're watching from 2016 to now, and even out to 2030, because I think we haven't seen anything yet. I think we're going to see some resolution on some things that started in 2016, the arrests and things like that. But from 2016 to now has been a sting operation coordinated by the Trump administration in his first term, with continuation of government, COG, in play while Biden was the president of the United States. The government and Trump's administration knew that Biden was going to steal the election, and they let them in order to map the network. And they let them in order to show people just how friggin' crazy these communists are. They're going to try and do this. Let's let them get 80% done. And then he's going to crush them. And I think we're going to watch that crushing starting now. And I think starting soon. There's a lot in place that has not been in place previously, that has been set up by the Trump administration, that's taken the last 10 years to set up. And now they're in a position where they can play offense in a way that they couldn't before, because they would have been stymied. If Trump had come in and arrested people in 2016, he would have been declared incompetent, incapable, right? And they would have said he's crazy. He's arresting previous presidents. He's arresting his political opponents, blah, 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 blah. This way, he's letting them expose themselves. He's not doing anything. He's got space. He's got arm's length. And the agencies are dealing with it. It's not Trump himself. It's the agencies. And so they're showing who they are. And Trump he doesn't want to, don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. They're showing who they are to the American public. Trump wants them to see it.
No, I get what you're saying. And I've heard this argument before. What I'm saying is, like, when are we going to see these arrests? Because this has been going on for a while. He's now on his second year there, and the people are starting to turn on him. And I'm not saying I'm one of those people, but I'm monitoring the boomer commentators that were on the right. They're all falling victim to Trump derangement syndrome. And it feels like he needs to come out, either hand out indictments and start arresting people, or come out and be honest with the people and say, this is our plan. There is a massive criminal conspiracy in Minnesota, and I understand you're not supposed to release the information, but he's not. Yeah, but he's not just fighting a legal issue. Like it's a messaging issue. He can't lose the House and the Senate.
I think that the re-election campaign is going to be more like arrests, and I think that we're going to see no, what's the word? Income tax. I think no income tax is going to be a big midterm play, and I think we're going to start seeing that ramp up in the next, I don't know, March probably, because politics is the timing matters a lot, right? And if you get the timing wrong, if you peak too early, you can screw yourself over. Pierre Poilievre, for example. So it's one of those things. The other thing to look at as well is, if Trump comes out and explains things, he's got bias, and that bias is going to bleed into the explanation. And Trump's bombastic. He likes to repeat himself. He has stories he likes to tell over and over. And so Trump explaining things to his constituents is going to be used against him some way. Trump likes to show and tell. Trump likes to put people in positions to expose who they are, and he knows who they are. But he called Kim Jong-un, the new one, very fine man, and all this stuff, and really built him up. But Trump doesn't lose sight of who he's dealing with and deals with them from a position of strength, right? And so, again, I think that he's just letting them expose themselves, and yeah, it helps. Ultimately, it helps Trump's reelection if these people get exposed and Trump is able to do something. Now, if he's not able to do something, and I've been as critical as most, there are no arrests, there haven't been any arrests, and I don't know, because Trump's not the AG. So is that Trump's failure? Is there no arrests? Does that come from Trump himself? Is that where he's failing? Or is that AG Bondi? Or is that like when Barr was the AG, or when Sessions was the AG? Are those guys failures? Or are we watching a kabuki theater where timing matters? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we watching the Department of Justice build cases to drop it on these guys like a ton of bricks? And we know, like, Trump himself has talked about arresting Obama. He wants Obama arrested. If that happened, there would be Minnesota riots nationwide, I think, personally. And so I think Trump is ceding the ground with these things could happen. There's been criminality. And so when it gets actioned, it's not a surprise. I think he was doing that with Greenland and Canada as well. Like, I'm going to take Greenland and Canada and Panama. And everybody was like, he's kidding. Oh my gosh, he's such a joker. And now 2 of 3 are done. Like, pretty well done, right? As far as I understand, Greenland, it's a done deal. Like, and they don't have to pay anything for Greenland, and they get whatever they want, and they can do whatever they want. They get all the military bases they want in whatever positions they want, full sovereign land. It's their land. That's that. It's American land. That's that. So, like, Trump got what he wanted for nothing, as far as I understand it.
Like before 2025, like 2024, I was a principled man, and I believed, I had a moral compass. Now it's like I have PTSD. I ain't going back there, man. I'm not going back to the Biden era. So whatever Trump has to do to win, and he's not a savior. He's doing things I don't agree with, but get Greenland, get Canada, lock it down. You've got South America, get rid of the Income Tax Act, you make life more affordable. House and the Senate would be good, but 2028, I think, is more important. Get another Republican president. Because
do you think Trump's, hold on, we have to talk about 2028. So, because why? And then we have to talk about 2028.
I was going to say, because if the biggest disaster would be if there's no repercussions for the 50 million illegals, and then you're basically just saying to the Democrats, next time you're in, bring in 100 million. That's 100 million.
Bring in everybody.
Yeah.
So there's nobody like Trump. Nobody on the world stage like Trump. There's nobody in Canada like Trump. What Trump means to me is, if he is able to fix it, and it's not a foregone conclusion at this point in time, if he's able to fix it, then that gives us a pathway that shows us that we can fix it. If he can't fix it, then that's not going to, then we're not going to be able to undo what's happened to us. If Trump can't get this thing fixed, if anybody can fix it, it's Trump. And if he can't, then we're kind of screwed. But if he can, then that's a signal that we can fix it too. Right? We can be that strong. We could do that. Right? If that guy can do that, then we can do it too. So that's what Trump means to me. There's nobody like Trump on the world stage, period. I don't see any Trump-like people in Canada. I don't see anybody with the resources and the influence and all of that other stuff. I haven't seen anybody like that in Canada. I haven't seen anybody like that after Trump. Rubio's a maybe. I don't think Vance is. Maybe for Rubio, because he's kind of funny, but his reach is not nearly what Trump's is.
He's too preppy for me. It's something about him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just I like what he's done in the Secretary of State spot much more than much more than what Vance has done in the VP. But they're trying to position Vance in for a succession. They're trying to position him to take over for Trump, but I don't see it. I think personally, and Trump has made intonations in this direction. Other people have made suggestions in this direction. The big Jewish funder for Trump has made this suggestion too, so I don't take that with a grain of salt. But they say 2028 is Trump's, and I think if Trump finds a way to get himself on the ballot, FDR was a 3-term president in 1944, right? At the end of the Second World War, he took another lap, and then they said, we're going to create, the 14th Amendment?
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say, the 14th Amendment. There's no way he can, though.
He's a constitutionalist. To Trump, he's done things. I don't know about undoing amendments to the Constitution, but Trump's a constitutionalist. And if there's a way around it, because it wasn't part of the original Constitution, having term limits wasn't part of the original Constitution. It only it's a very, very modern thing. It's new, right? In the age of the United States, it's the last 100 years, 80 years. And so there's a lot of history without term limits in the United States, tradition of 2 terms, but no official term limits. I just think Trump's going to find a way. He's been bandying about 2028 hats. If anybody can do that, I think Trump could do it. Too old for a 3rd term, maybe.
Yeah. That's my only concern. Like, he's aged viciously. He was so much younger in his first term. Well, I mean, but I don't know if he's got it in him.
Maybe not. If Trump is not it, then I fear that we go into not a spiral, but maybe a spiral. Maybe it takes 15 years. But it doesn't, if he doesn't fix it, if he doesn't put it together, and I liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I wanted the finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer to be very satisfying. And I didn't see how Joss Whedon could get the hour-long, but 43 minutes, really, because there's commercials, Buffy. But that's what it was, because I saw it on the TV guide, because that's what it was when the Buffy came out. And I saw it was a 1-hour episode, and I was like, there's no friggin' way this is going to be a satisfying episode. It's going to be rushed. We have too much stuff. There's too many things open to close off in a satisfactory way. That's how I feel about Trump. I was wrong about Buffy. The last episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was very satisfying, and they did a good job wrapping up all the stories. And I was like, oh, I don't even need to be worried about this. This is great. So I was quite satisfied with that. I fear that Trump doesn't have the amount of time that he needs to get things done that are necessary to put us on the right path. But maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before, right? So maybe I'm wrong. I hope that Trump's able to do it. If we take the last year as an example, well, we're out of time, right?
The other thing you said, I fear Trump doesn't have enough time. He's getting sidetracked. Like, the neocons keep taking him on these escapades. Let's go bomb Iran. Let's go help Israel here. Let's go get involved in Ukraine again. And it's taking up his time, and it's costing him some support. That's the other thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, well, that's their strategy. You got to chew up his time. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to waste his time with stuff that's crap and keep him off balance when it comes to stuff will move his agenda forward in a meaningful way. If he works on something that they want him to work on, then they'll give him all the time in the world, right? Israel, Iran, all the time in the world. You guys can spend all the time in the world on that, because Iran being neutralized helps Israel, and that's my main concern about Trump, that he's acting for Israel and not for himself, or not for the United States. And that's been true of the United States for a long, long time. That's not new to Trump, but Trump has some very close ties. He's personal friends with Bibi Netanyahu, who's the leader of Israel, and his daughter is his family is Jewish. I don't know if they married Israeli Jews. Did his daughter marry? Is Kushner an Israeli Jew? I don't know. But there's all sorts of familial connections and stuff like that. And I don't care about that. I'm not worried about anything other than leadership making choices that benefit a different country first, rather than their own country. And so having Trump conflicted in that way is the same as all of the other modern presidents, right? Everybody goes and touches the wall. Malai went and touched the wall. What's his name? The El Salvadorian guy, Bukele. Yeah, Bukele. Yeah, he went and touched the wall. Right? They were all, but Malai was much bigger deal. And so they all go and do this. And I don't understand kowtowing. And Canada, right? I don't understand the situation where a Canadian prime minister and a United States president and leaders of Central American countries all have to go and kowtow to this wall. You know what I mean? It just seems weird. And you can see it in the policies as well. And it seems weird to me, but
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. But was Kushner from Israel originally? Was he born in Israel, or was he an American Jew? I don't know. And not that it would be different, but it might be different. I
You
don't
know
know.
what I say? Trump's administration, it's schizophrenic. So if you read the national security strategy document, I thought it was really good. And it was America first. And it focused exactly where it should focus. And then you get other forces pulling him towards Israel and Iran and pulling him towards Ukraine, like Lindsey Graham, the neocons.
Yeah, I don't like anything to do with Ukraine. I think it's so. I don't. One of his big stated things was, "I'm going to finish Ukraine in a day." Like Ukraine's done first day, first hour done. He did. He's finished more wars than any other. I think any other modern president. Like he's got 8 wars that he finished in the first term, and that or in the first year, excuse me, of his presidency. This second presidency, and so like that's impactful. But I don't think Zelensky wants to make a deal. Trump seems to not understand that Zelensky doesn't want to make a deal. Trump also doesn't seem to understand that Victoria Nuland started this Ukrainian war in 2014 with American foreign policy. Victoria Nuland's not under arrest. All the people who coordinated that are not under arrest. I think they're still advising. So like, I don't understand how I can be sitting here in my garage and understand maybe Trump knows things that I don't know. He's an American Jew. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Clown World. I appreciate it. So there's certainly things that I don't understand, but looking at what Trump's actions are, there's a lot of things that he just seems to allow that seem like this is false. Like we shouldn't allow this. And I don't understand. Maybe it's a counter move. So for example, people criticized Trump for bringing in the COVID vaccine and pushing the COVID vaccine, which ended up being a bioweapon. And it is a bioweapon. But apparently the reason for that, and I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've told people that I've heard, is the plan for COVID was to lock people down for 10 years while they tested the vaccine out. And Trump said, no, we're not going to be locking people down for 10 years. We're going to get this thing out faster than anybody's ever gotten anything out before. So like moves and counter moves, we're not going to lock people down. We're going to have an economy that's open, so on and so forth. And so they flipped it. And remember, before Biden was the president, people were saying we're never going to have this Trump vaccine. We're never going to, this Trump.
I remember Kamala Harris said, if Trump releases, like, I'm not having it. I'm not
going to do it. And then as soon as Biden got in, bingo, bango, bongo, everybody was on board with the vaccine and it was mandated and the whole deal. So moves and counter moves. I think genuinely, and I say this a lot, but I don't think people believe me. I think we are genuinely in a war. We are embroiled in a conflict and people don't get that. And so like, there's a fog of war. So like, there are things that I genuinely don't know. And like the Trump administration will know. But from my perch, the things that I do know, it looks like Canada is a communist country being run by foreign communists. It looks like Australia is a country being run by foreign communists, not Australians. Canada's not being run by Canadians. It's being run by foreign communists. It looks like the United Kingdom is the same. Looks like NATO and the G7 is structured to be a globalist structure that runs the world, and you're not allowed to question the G7. You're not allowed to question NATO. NATO will be the military backbone of the G7, and Trump being in there kind of squelches that. But he's pretending like these things aren't true, and I think that they're very true and obvious. So I get frustrated, like, what are you doing, Trump? But I understand that we're in a war, and so like, I think silver has something to do with this, right? We're looking at silver. I think that the reason silver is going through the roof is because fiat currency is dying. And I don't think necessarily that Bitcoin is the answer. I think if you have a shit ton of silver, you're in a good position. But if you have anything else, you're at risk of having your currency that you're holding collapse. I don't have nearly enough silver, by the way. I'm not saying buy silver. I'm saying, fuck, I should have bought silver. And so like, silver has something to do with this. A whole bunch of other things are lining up that look like the deep state really is cracking under the pressure that Trump's applying. So maybe I'm more patient than other people, or maybe I look at things from maybe a different perspective or something like that. But as I said, I think we're in a genuine war. And I think that when you're in a war, sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to take that city in 3 weeks. Like, see that city right there? I'm going to be in that. That's going to be our city in 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks happen and your general comes up and he's like, oof. So they had, we lost a bunch of men. We're not in the city yet, but 2 more weeks and we will be. It's a war. And so like, I look at that and I'm like, oh shit, maybe things didn't go as well as they were expecting, or it's going in a different direction. And sometimes that happens too. The front is kind of unpredictable, right? Like there's multiple fronts moving in different places, different battles.
Look,
and so
I get that, Mark, that we're in a war, but they're not telling the people that it's oil. What's your opinion on this?
How can they? Would you believe, like, if Carney came out and said, we are in a silent war against the United States because we're a communist country and we have to undermine, like, and then Trump saying Canada's a communist country, like, where does it go from there? Because the media will lambaste him. He can't tell people. He has to show them.
Right, but like, let's go to Venezuela. Like, first it was about drugs, and then after drugs, it was about oil, and then after oil, it was about election. In your opinion, are they deliberately doing this, and is it a winning strategy, or are they scrambling with the messaging?
No, I think it's about all those things. So it's on the surface. So like they're keeping their, it is genuinely about all those things. Trump was a victim of election interference. He lost the 2020 election when he really should have won the 2020 election. And he's got the information that he needs, but it's not admissible in court, as far as I understand it. And so he is trying to get the information in a way that is admissible in court. And so the drugs moving into the oil, and that the oil implicates China, implicates Cuba, implicates a whole bunch of other things going on, like the oil embargo and then trucking oil or shipping oil out of Venezuela, and then having Russian and Chinese ships, the codes that they broadcast erroneously from those ships. Trump cutting all that off, cuts off communist China from cheap oil, cuts off Cuba from money from China and Venezuela and cheap oil. And so, and it puts pressure on their, economy, and it puts pressure on the regime. Just like we were talking about, the regime in Iran was put under pressure because there was no money and people couldn't get their stuff. So that's how it puts pressure on those regimes. And so when people found out Trump was blowing up drug boats, the media put that narrative out. It's about drugs. And then when the media found out it's about oil, and there was a naval embargo on Venezuela, they said it's about oil. And when people got to the point of they kidnap Maduro and he's going to give names and be deposed about who's actually laundering the money through Venezuela and the connections with regards to the Dominion systems and how that's being used to fix elections across, 77 countries or something like that. Then, well, they didn't report anything as far as I understand it. They didn't say it's about the Dominion systems that were coordinated, and because Dominion also is in Canada and we use it still. We trust it with our elections, all of us do.
I guess it's wishful thinking, but I would just like something cleaner, like Donald Trump comes out with a whiteboard.
I would love that. Oh,
King of Spades, and he points
Dude,
to Obama.
I would love it. Him,
the Ace of Clubs is King Charles. You know, we got him.
Listen,
blow up King Charles's airplane.
My fellow Americans. Oh my gosh, dude, I want that. I absolutely want that. And I think that we're going to get a Glenn Beck style, or I think we're going to get an explainer, because Trump's a showman. And I think he wants to, at some point, take credit for all of the crap that he's done, because he's gone through some shit. Like, he's gone through some shit. Whether you like him or you don't like him, the stuff that they've done to him is absolutely jaw-dropping. I can't even believe it. And he seems like a genuine kind of guy. Like, he seems like a decent dude. And so I want to see the whiteboard. I want him to say, my fellow Americans, and then stand up from the Oval Office desk, walk over to a whiteboard, and do a 3-hour presser where he walks us all through it. I would love that. You have no idea. I want that to happen so badly. I wanted that to happen on November 5th, 2016. I wanted that to happen January 21st, 2017. And it never happened. And I was so upset at the end of the first Trump administration. I was like, fucking hell. And now I have come to terms. I am at peace with the fact that I am not going to know, but I feel like maybe one day we will know. I hope that there's a book. I hope that there's a breakdown of what it all is. And I mean, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because, like, as I said, Trump's a showman. He's going to embellish, like his story about Macron and, the medication. You're going to have to double your medication or maybe triple your medication. And we're going to, United States is going to drop ours down a lot. And he's like, no. Trump will embellish. Trump will be hyperbolic about it. And I'm probably saying that wrong. And, he will make it seem like it's way better than it is. But I definitely want to see the breakdown of everything they're doing. And I hope we get to see it in like 10, 15 years. I think Trump's going to come out with like multiple books, like the first term, the second term, the Biden year. Yeah. Like, I think it's going to be, and he'll just ghostwrite it. He'll just, stand around and talk at people. Like, it's time to write your book. Okay, where was I? And then they'll read the last kind of whatever he did. And then he'll start, freewheeling again, and it'll go for 3 hours, and they'll turn that into a book. I am convinced if Trump wins, and that's not a foregone conclusion, that we'll get read in. But if he doesn't win, or if it's messy, and how often is it messy, right? So like, I don't
Sorry, I'm just looking through the comments. There was one
know.
thing that came up. Do you think Trump and Carney are working together to annex Canada? If you can answer that, and then I also wanted to know. You said Canada is a run foreign communist country. Who's running it?
China. China was that's what everything's about. Venezuela is about China. Cuba's about China. It's all about China. China runs us. Big. In lay terms, do I think Trump and Carney are working together to annex Canada? No, I think Trump knows what Carney is. Trump knows what Carney is, and so he puts Carney in a position to do exactly what he thinks he's going to do. And he knew what Ray was. He knew when he replaced Comey as the FBI director, he knew what Ray was going to do, and he put him there because he was going to do it. He didn't want him to do it, but he was going to do it. So Trump's plans look like they're in concert with Carney's plans because they're meant to counter the globalists. So what are the globalists going to do? This is what Trump thinks the globalists are going to do. He endorses Carney, and the globalists do predictably what he thought they were going to do. And so Trump's plan is executed and rolls out that way. And I think that it's going to, well, Canada's been making bad policy decisions for 30 years. Like, it's not new. It's not just Carney.
Since
so,
Trudeau.
yeah. For a lot longer than 30 years, 40 years. Yeah. So we've been making bad policy decisions, and we've been in a situation where we snookered ourselves economically. We can't get out of this without the help from the United States. So if the United States wants to annex us, they can, because economically we're beholden to them. If they shut off, there was a time in Canadian history where the United States, if they shut things off, we wouldn't starve and we wouldn't have mass layoffs, although maybe mass layoffs, maybe I might be overspeaking there. But there was a time where we were much more self-sufficient than we are now. And we have got ourselves through apathy and thinking that we're better than the Americans, but we rely on the Americans to get into that situation. And so it's not Carney's fault, but he's here, and the globalists are going to continue robbing us until we stop them.
Mark, I got a question. So I hear this. There's some people who believe it's China that's running this, the world, or whatever, this global communism, international socialism. I'm more like Gold Deck here. All roads lead to London. I think the king parachuted Mark Carney in. And then there's also the issue of NAFTA and how America has completely taken over Canada. How do those three things intersect? Those are three different people fighting over the same landmass.
Yeah, but China runs the UK as well. So in the UK, Starmer is building the big, what's it called? It's not ambassador. What is it? When you're a different country and you have your embassy, the big embassy in London. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, no, but I know what an embassy is.
Okay, so the big controversy in England right now. I do, part of my show is like, I look at England because I think that it's a canary in the coal mine for what's going to happen in Canada. And so the big hubbub in England right now is Starmer wanted to move forward with 20,000 square foot or square meter, 20,000 square meter, bigger than square foot, Chinese embassy in the center of London, like center of London. I think it's less than a block than the 1 by 1 square city of London. I think it's really, really close to that place, right? And so England, while it appears to be a society of, God-fearing Christians, Arabs, whatever, anymore, I don't know. While it appears on the outside to be one thing, it is actually run by China. Already it's run by China. Charles is usurped. And in the early 2000s, they started. So my mom is British, and I used to go to England all the time. I was in England in 1999 when the Hong Kong lease ran out. And I remember reading newspaper reports about that and asking my grandparents about it, and they explained it. And so at the 2000s, there weren't hordes of Middle Easterners in England. After the 2000s, the taps got turned on, and by 2008, it was a different feel when I went back. You know what I mean? And so I think that they waited until, for whatever reason, respect, I don't know what, but they waited until the Queen died to really, like, they started the invasion in the early 2000s, and they waited until the Queen died to really bring the mask off. The people in charge want an easily controlled population. And an easily controlled population isn't Britain, isn't Canada, isn't the United States. Canada now, but not Canada, traditional Canada. And so communists are easier to control, and poor people from countries that don't have first world amenities are easier to control. And so you use the first world, you use us and our tax dollars to bring in the third world to do demographics change. You bribe the politicians.
Mark, I get all that. I want to come back to that, bribing the politicians, but I'm trying to understand how you view things. Do you think that this is China on their own, unilaterally, they decided that we're going to take over the West? Or do you think it's the same bastards that tried to do this through Hitler, they tried to do this with the Bolsheviks, they tried to do this through Mao, and maybe they're cooperating with China now?
I think it's
who sits at the high table?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Okay. The people who did the Bolsheviks Holodomor, that how you say? I always say those things wrong. The Holodomor. The kulaks, yeah. No, they were the victims. The kulaks were the victims. The people who killed them. Those people moved from Russia into Germany, and then when they couldn't accomplish their goals in Germany, they realized they couldn't run the world from a country. They couldn't rule the world from like a seat in Canada, right? They couldn't be like, we are the leaders of the world. Us Canadians, we're so good and we're so polite and we're so nice. We're the leaders of the world. They couldn't run the world like that. They needed to have something else. They needed to have another thing. Even if you had military might, you couldn't run the world like that. People won't listen to you. And so how do you run the world? So after the Second World War, the important Germans went through Project Paperclip to the Manhattan Project, right? And then other important Germans went down to Argentina, and there are German towns in Argentina. And then other important Germans started the League of Nations, the WHO, and I think had a League of Nations turned into the United Nations. G7 was formed, and then a world order was established. And a world order is the group of people who sit back and pay for all of those people. They have puppets running those countries. They have influence in those countries. That's a world order. So Wilhelm, I think it was Wilhelm, had a world order by seeding all of the countries of Europe with their kings and queens, and they're all interrelated. So he ran that with an iron fist. He had a world order in that situation. And then the world expanded to the United States and so on and so forth. But we are under a world, or we were under a world order, and now they're trying to establish a new world order. The people I think who sit back are the 12 families, like the Rothschilds and, all of these, the names, everybody knows the names. I think that whoever is pulling those strings, they give their orders, and the execution is done through an agreement between Islam and the communists. And through that agreement, the crown is brought in England and for access, and they've been paid off. They've been like, I think the crown is one of those families, one of the 12 families. They've signed off on the deal, so the crown is going to facilitate. You know what I'm saying? Like King Charles is probably a king on the chessboard, but there are players to the chessboard, to the chess game, right? And the players on the board are not powerful. The players are powerful. We're not playing. So just the globalist families are represented on the board. They move the pieces. Charles is a piece.
No, I get that. So let's go back to one thing you said, the Rothschild. Let's just go with that. Everybody knows that name, right? The big bad boogeyman.
Yeah, but they represent a group of people, I think. It's not just them. I just want to make sure that's clear. That's a short form to represent. I think it's 12 families, but I've heard Book of
I'm
Rome.
Guessing the Rockefellers are one of
300, them. Yeah. Rothschild, Rockefeller, a couple other families as well.
These hugely powerful central bankers, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. How do they interact with communist China? Do they answer to communist China? Do they work with communist China?
No, they run it. They tell them so the communism goes back to there were people who were creating these ways to run a society. The Fabian, do you know what the Fabian Society is? Wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah,
wasn't Pierre Trudeau a Fabian?
Oh, a bunch of leaders are. Yeah, yes. Yes, absolutely. So like there are ideas about how to run a society. Communism is an idea of how to run a society. It's the counterbalance to capitalism, I guess you can say. And so these ideas have uh, an origin, and I think the origin are the families who are discussing, how do we want to do this? How do we want to run this this thing that we have? You know what I mean? And they want technology, and they want slaves. They want to have an easy life. They don't want to work too hard. They want to have food that's easy to access. So they need a population, a base population that's going to do that. Think upstairs house, downstairs house. You want to have an easy life. You don't want to actually be cooking. You don't want to actually be cleaning. But the cooking and cleaning is an all-day job. So you have to have that somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And so these people, these families decided this is the strategy we want to run, communism. And so they put the top families in charge of communism in China. And so they call them up and say, hey guys, this is what we're doing. And they say, okay. And it's run like a mafia. It's all run like a mafia. You have capos, the bosses make the decision. You tell your capos, the capos tell the people who need to know, and you action it. And people who screw it up, they get, don't forget the cannoli, they get removed, right? They do. And we've seen it. And so it's a situation where we are operating and we're in the dark. So like, we don't know the connections between the families, the communists, the crown, Islam. We don't understand how those all things work together, but they do work together. And we're fighting that enemy that they have endless resources. And we've got memes. And
I have faith. We'll win.
A disgusting population.
I'm going to mix two things together. John Paul Berg, JP, says China, Zijin Gold to just purchase Canada minor allied gold for $5 billion.
I think they stopped that. I read that report last year, or I read a report talking about, I think, that gold mine. And somebody was doing a lot of work with regards to like, here's this gold mine, and it's in Canada and we shouldn't be giving it to China, basically. And it was a national security thing. It was a big deal. I'll have to look that up, but they talked about this last year. There were people who stifled the deal last year. Maybe they've worked it out. But Canada would be stupid to sell that gold mine.
So they're definitely going to sell it then.
Yeah. It would be a fast way to achieve their goals.
I just wanted to bring that up because JP's a friend. I just keep going back to this China thing. So Bill C8, C9 that they're trying to push it through. Who's behind this? Is it the king and the high table guys, or is it China? Is it?
Well, it's not just happening. So like in France, they just came out with a under 16s can't use social media, just like the Australia one. Australia just passed that law and people don't like it, and it's being lambasted, and people don't like it. But it is not. If it was just happening in Canada, I'd say, oh yeah, maybe I'm wrong here. It's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. Blue states are trying to do something as well, but they have less maneuverability. But there are a whole bunch of European countries who are moving to silence their citizens' speech in an attempt to protect diversity. And somebody said in a tweet this morning, it was a meme that I saw, if diversity was our strength, why do they need censorship to enforce it? Right. So like, it's not a strength if you have to silence your citizens to shut up about that whole diversity.
I'll tell you what I think is happening. I think since the Second Boer War, the First World War, the Second World War, the Nazis, the Bolsheviks, Communist China, and JFK's assassination, whoever's behind this, just these interests, this international socialist interests we call globalists, they're the ones that are just pushing the world in this direction. And I think people, I'm using the analogy of the high table, but people, they move in and some of them get a seat. Maybe they gave one to Saudi Arabia, maybe one to Communist China. They're all monsters. As you mentioned, they're all mob bosses, and we're just along for the ride.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. When you have governance that's local and small and accountable, then you can have you can solve local problems. But when you have governance like what we've got, this globalist machine that's running, there are interests, even like layered interests, that influence people who are in leadership positions. And we've been so infantilized as well. Like, we've been told there's somebody around who knows the right answer. You got to find a consultant. You got to find somebody who's done this before. You got to find somebody they can show you how to do this. And it's like, well, okay, but we're running a country. And if we ask somebody from Japan, that might not work here. Or if we ask somebody from England, maybe they're going to lead us astray. Or at the very least, maybe they're going to realize how many zeros they can put at the end of that check and take us for a bit of a ride. You know, like you get into a taxi in Ireland and they take you on the scenic route, and then you pay $20 for a $5 cab ride. And so like we have been, if a lot of people say when presidents get into office, they take you into a room, some rabbis come into the room, they tell you what happened. Some people come into a room and they inform you about how the government works. And it's like, oh, by the way, the government doesn't work how you think it works. We tell you what to do. And if you don't do it, we kill you. Or we, you know,
There's that famous James Bond movie, I think it was License to Kill, where the bad guy summons in the president. He's like, remember, you're only president for life.
Yeah, right.
Gives him his check.
Right. And so like, yeah, I think that there are elements of that. And it's one of those things where they own everything. When people who have morals, or when people who have high ideas about whatever, you know, I'm going to go into office and I'm going to fix this thing. And then when they get in, the globalists have control of global economy, right? When you get in, all of a sudden your country's in a depression. So you want to do a reform, Mark, that's going to cut the workforce in the government by 30%, but we've got a massive depression. You can't do that right now, Mark, right? And it's like, I'm the leader, and they're saying, here's the consequences of your action. It's going to be real bad. Hoovervilles are going to be called Markvilles, you know, like they're going to hate you, man. And it's like, oh, so then I don't do it, right? Because I don't actually think I know what I'm doing, and I believe these other people who are supposed to be my advisors, but the advisors are crooked communists, right? Just like our media is. And it's like, and we've watched that happen to a whole bunch of our leaders. We've watched them come into office, get told basically what's what, and then become ineffective wet noodles, and they can't do anything. And they say, oh, we can't do anything. And then, you know, Pierre Poilievre can't win. And he's going to get in and do the same things Carney's doing, because they're all controlled opposition, all of them, from the leaders of Australia to the United Kingdom to Canada, and worse, more. And like each province in Canada, I think the same thing, right? Scotland is run by leaders who are crooked. Ireland's run by crooked leaders. Ireland's worse than Canada. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Impossible.
Yeah. And so like, what's behind C9 and C8? What's behind the Australian social media ban for kids? Same thing with the French one. They're doing anything they can to move their ideology forward, because anything less, they lose power. And if they lose power, then the game's done. For them anyway.
I kind of wanted to, you and we did a live stream, and I said I want to believe that there's a good guy, and I think you said that too. This whole Donald Trump. So JT says, an easily controlled populace is a centralized one world, one order. Trump claims to stand against it and seems to want strong sovereign nations as allies. But if he can't have that, he essentially needs to take them over. Putting aside the take them over part, like, do you really think Trump is part of this globalist thing, or is he going in a different direction?
Well, that's what I was saying at the beginning. I think it seems like Trump is poking them in the eye, is really doing a number on their plans. It doesn't seem like they like what he's doing. It seems like they're trying to stop him. And so that tells me that he's doing things that they don't like. And the enemy of my enemy is possibly my friend. But again, well, you don't know, right? Like, you don't know, because he could have another motivation that looks a lot like being friends with me, or protecting sovereignty, protecting nations, protecting a world order that is maybe dying, you know, like the fiat currency is dying. And when I say world order, like, I think of how things were in Canada in the year 2000, and they're not like that now. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very different. And going back to the 2000s doesn't fix all the problems that Trump is trying to. Farage is a loser. He made a deal. He made a deal with the globalists. I'm sure of it. He wants to be prime minister more than he wants to fix England. He's a snake. I like Rupert Lowe. I do. I like him a lot. I can't tell if Trump is a good guy. I can't tell if he's on my side. And when I say my side, I mean like the side of your average worker, the guy going to work and paying taxes. I don't know if he's on my side, or if he is representing a different faction for control. But to me, it seems like the only faction that I can see him representing is the Israel group, and they're already in control. They don't need Trump. Why are they doing that? It doesn't make sense to me. So I don't get it. And some people say they needed Trump to bring people like me on board. It's like a Pied Piper strategy. Like, oh, but I'll point to the vaccine. I didn't take the vaccine. Trump said it was safe and effective, and I said, "Shove it, old man." Like, I'm not interested in any of that kind of stuff, and I'll make my own decisions. The whole drive of the movement, the Q movement, and by extension the Trump movement, is you make your own decisions. You don't listen to some third party who you quote trust. You find out enough information for you to be comfortable with your own decision, not because he said it, not because I said it, not because Peyman said it, but because you looked it up enough and you feel comfortable making that decision, not anything else. And so, like, I don't think that holds water, the whole idea of a Pied Piper situation. I don't think that makes sense. Like, because if he's convincing me to look into things as much as I want until I feel comfortable, well, then I'm not comfortable with him yet. Right. And so, like, and maybe I'll get there, but not yet. But he's a sight better than Kamala Harris. I wouldn't want Kamala Harris in charge, right? Like, I don't know that there's any other option. So it's like, okay, well, we're on this ride, and it seems like 80% of the stuff he's doing, I'm pretty okay with. 20%, I'm like, what the hell? Well, 15%, I'm like, ooh, what the hell? And then 5%, I'm like, okay, I really don't like that. But like, for the most part, I'm like, yeah, yep, that's pretty much it. And all the time, everybody's saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this ICE agent killed this woman. She tried to run him down with a car. I can't believe this ICE agent tried to kill this man. He had a loaded weapon on him that he was trying. Not only did he have a loaded weapon, he was trying to draw the loaded weapon on 5 ICE agents. Like, you got a death wish, buddy. Like, that's stupid. And there's Chris Rock does a whole skit on this, like how to not get shot and killed by police. Like, be polite, listen to direction. Like, fuck, man,
yeah, unless you want your ass kicked. I remember
really.
that.
Right.
Let me just, I just want to share one last thing and then we can end it. This is a post from Tim Pool, and it captures what I've been saying. The multicultural democracy cannot coexist with a constitutional republic. Like, he's talking about how it's going to lead to civil war. And I always say there is a massive divide between the urban centers and everyone else. Like, all of these bad ideas are coming out of the urban centers because everything is artificial. Law, accounting, bureaucracy. They're just making up jobs at a higher salary than it should be. And they're all on board. HR, yeah, but they're all on board with mass immigration. It's a little bit cheaper, and the money they save, they can spend at the bar.
Yep. Yeah. As I was saying before, they've done a number on our society, convincing us that we don't have enough agency to make choices to run our society by ourselves, and that we need to find some expert. And they've cast themselves as the expert. And I reject that, and they don't like that I reject that. And so it's difficult to find people. When I say I don't like that, I mean, if I reject that within like, I've run for office, and I run for office the same way I'm doing this interview here. Like, I'm pretty plain with what I think, and I put things forward. So the powers that be don't like my position on things. And so I'm not promoted, and you can already tell who's going to win the elections in Guelph before as soon as the people are announced. Pretty much I could tell you who's going to win. So it's one of those things where they want a situation where you feel demoralized, but I don't think that the arenas that they've dominated are going to be important much longer, or they're not going to have the ability to dominate those arenas because their funding is getting cut off in various ways. So I'm interested to see how it all works out. I think that I walked away from your question. What was your question again?
I like the way he framed it. He goes like, a multicultural democracy cannot coexist with a constitutional republic.
Right. So we are getting told, basically, you don't know what you're doing. Let us run things. And then the purple-haired woke women are mostly, and men too, I'm sure, are coming in and destroying things because that's what they're being incentivized to do. It's all about incentives, and we're being told that we don't have the expertise, and anything we do will result in unintended negative consequences. So you might as well not even try. And so we listen to them and we allow them to continue because we don't feel strong enough to implement what's necessary.
I just saw your handle and I was just laughing. You call yourself a bad mofo.
No, I just did for today. I thought it was funny.
Yeah. So, Mark, can you tell everyone how they can follow you, watch your show?
Sure. Yeah, I do a daily politics show on CanadaPoly.com. I do it on YouTube and Rumble and a bunch of other ones. It's usually 25 minutes free, and it's an hour long if you're not watching the free one. And you can sign up at CanadaPoly.com. I'm interested. I was interested in politics well before I watched Rachel Maddow in 2008 until Donald Trump woke me up coming down that elevator. And actually, it was Pizzagate that woke me up. But I've been following this pretty closely, and I talk very plainly about what's going on. I'm not the only people who pay me for my content are my subscribers. I don't take any money from any political parties or anything like that. So I'm also not I don't support conservatives. I don't trust Pierre Poilievre, and I don't trust the Liberals. And I think the entire government, our entire Canadian government, is corrupt to the point of uselessness. They're not working for us. And so I explore Canadian politics from that position. And I find it super fun.
So, yeah, I was going to say real quick, what woke me up was the Kavanaugh trial, believe it or not.
Unbelievable, right? Like, this guy, 30 years ago, he raped me. Are you sure about that?
They're asking him about flatulence and drinking beer.
Yes, I do get a bit farty. It's a weird question. Yeah, no, I see the reason I started my show, and I'll just tell this quick story and then we can end it, is because I thought the cast of characters in Canadian politics was absolutely hilarious, and they did hilarious things. And I used to love watching Colbert and The Daily Show, but my favorite part of the Colbert and The Daily Show was the beginning, where they'd show news articles and they'd basically say, like, this is this person, this is their job. Here's this news article where they did not do their job. And that's the joke. And basically I just started doing that, and I started calling Justin Trudeau potato headed Justin Trudeau, because he looked like a pretty potato. And I grew like crazy in my first year. I had people wanting to meet me. I had MPs wanting to meet me. It was so crazy because I wasn't even on the camera. But fundamentally, I thought that style was the best style, and that's what I do now. Except it's an hour of that, so it's fun. I enjoy doing it. So I'm glad that people like to watch, and I'm glad it gets me invited to chat with you about how crazy things are, because they're crazy. And I think reality is so different than what we've been told reality is, that society would have a hard time adjusting to real reality if somebody just laid it on them. If somebody was just like, here you go, buddy, this is what's real, they'd be like, what? They wouldn't have any idea how to deal with that.
I say that if somebody told me the gravity was a CIA op, I would believe them.
Yeah, at this point, right? For sure. I got a story to tell you later.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for coming on, and everyone, please go ahead and go on over to CanadaPoly.com and check him out and subscribe.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Take care.